Nebraska has been under some form of severe weather threat for 4 straight days now, and it is not close to finished. A tornado warning was issued Monday night for southwestern Greeley and eastern Valley counties near the town of Ord, as radar detected rotation inside a severe thunderstorm producing hail up to 2 inches across. Overnight storms in that same stretch of central Nebraska dumped 2 to 4 inches of rain in a matter of hours. Official measurements topped an inch in Lincoln, Hebron, Hastings, Grand Island, and Columbus, and as of today, forecasters are watching an even more dangerous setup take shape for tomorrow. One meteorologists are specifically describing as more favorable for organized, strong storms than anything the state has seen so far this week, a distinction that matters considerably to anyone trying to decide how seriously to take the next 24 hours. This is the story of exactly what has been driving Nebraska's severe weather this week, why today is only a bridge to what forecasters expect will be a considerably more dangerous Friday, and what the specific threats are that residents across the state need to be watching for right now. No exaggeration, just what the National Weather Service, the Storm Prediction Center, and local Nebraska meteorologists are actually reporting. Drop a comment and tell me if you're anywhere in Nebraska or Kansas right now dealing with this pattern directly, because I want this video to reach the people actually standing under these storm outlooks this week, rather than people watching from somewhere the storms will never actually reach. I read every one of these. If you want grounded, accurate, severe weather coverage, instead of recycled panic, subscribe. It is free, and a like helps this reach people before the next round of storms reaches them. Let us go for 5,000 likes on this one. Now let us get into it. To understand why this week has produced such a sustained stretch of severe weather across Nebraska, you first need to understand the broader pattern sitting behind it. A cold front has been repeatedly sliding through the region, and each pass has been colliding with a genuinely unusual amount of atmospheric moisture for this point in August, part of a broader wet stretch that has already made this one of the rainier stretches Nebraska has seen in years. Lincoln recorded its 10th wettest July on record, and August is already tracking well above normal for rainfall on top of that, meaning the ground across much of the state is entering this week's storms already saturated, a factor that raises flash flooding risk considerably, even when an individual storm's rainfall total would not normally be considered extreme on its own. That combination, repeated cold fronts and an atmosphere already loaded with more moisture than usual, is precisely why this week has produced round after round of storms, rather than a single, isolated severe weather day the way a more typical August week in Nebraska often would. Monday night's tornado warning illustrates the specific mechanism behind this week's more dangerous storms. The National Weather Service office in Hastings issued the warning after radar detected rotation within a severe thunderstorm tracking over Ord, a detection method meteorologists rely on when a storm's internal wind structure suggests it has the potential to produce a tornado, even before anyone on the ground has visually confirmed one touching down. That storm was also producing hail up to 2 inches in diameter, golf ball sized and larger, capable of causing significant damage to roofs, vehicles, and crops across the agricultural land that dominates much of central Nebraska. Warnings issued this way, based on radar-indicated rotation rather than a confirmed sighting, are treated with exactly the same urgency as a visually confirmed tornado, since waiting for direct visual confirmation, particularly at night or when a tornado is wrapped in rain, can cost precious minutes that make the difference between reaching shelter safely and not. A marginal to slight risk for severe weather, a level 2 out of 5 on the Storm Prediction Center's Outlook scale, has covered most of Nebraska and Kansas through Tuesday night and into Wednesday morning, with forecasters specifically flagging large hail and damaging wind as the primary threats, alongside a lower end but real chance for an isolated tornado, particularly near the Nebraska-Kansas border. Here is where the forecast becomes genuinely more concerning, because meteorologists tracking this pattern have been explicit that tomorrow's setup looks meaningfully more dangerous than what the state has already experienced this week. An unstable atmosphere is expected to build through the afternoon before storms begin developing over western Nebraska, then gradually push eastward through the evening and into the overnight period. The storm parts of Nebraska for a severe weather threat, with large to very large hail and damaging wind gusts identified as the primary hazards. Meteorologists have noted that Friday's atmosphere will be considerably more favorable for organized strong storms than the more scattered activity seen earlier this week, and forecast models suggest those storms could grow into a larger, more organized system overnight, which would shift the primary threat toward widespread damaging winds as the system pushes into early Saturday morning. That kind of transition from scattered individual storm cells into a single, larger, more organized complex overnight is exactly the sequence that has historically produced some of the more significant severe weather events across the plains, since a consolidated system can sustain damaging winds across a far wider swath of territory than the more isolated storms typical of earlier in the week. Flooding remains a real concern as well in any area that ends up under the heaviest rainfall, given how saturated the ground already is heading into this next round. It is worth being precise about what this outlook does and does not guarantee, because a level 2 out of 5 risk, and even the DE more elevated threat expected tomorrow, describes an increased probability of severe weather across a broad area, not a certainty that every specific town within that outlook will actually see a tornado, damaging hail, or destructive wind. Storm Prediction Center. Outlooks are inherently probabilistic, built from atmospheric ingredients that favor severe storms developing somewhere within the outlined area, and the exact towns that end up in the direct path of the most intense cells often are not clear until storms are already forming, and radar can track their specific movement in real time. That is precisely why having a reliable way to receive warnings the moment they are issued, rather than relying solely on the broader outlook, matters considerably more than the outlook itself once storms actually begin firing, since the outlook tells you a dangerous day is possible, while the warning tells you exactly when and where to actually take shelter. There's a broader pattern worth understanding here as well, because this week's stretch of storms is not an isolated event disconnected from the rest of this Nebraska summer. The unsettled weather pattern responsible for this week's storms is expected to continue through the rest of the week and into early next week, with daily chances for showers and thunderstorms, persisting across the region well beyond tomorrow's more organized severe threat. That persistence matters for anyone trying to plan around this week's forecast, since a single dangerous day is one thing to prepare for, but a genuinely unsettled stretch spanning most of a week requires sustained attention rather than a single day's caution, particularly for farmers and outdoor workers whose plans depend heavily on knowing which specific days are actually safe to be outside for extended stretches. So what does all of this actually mean if you live anywhere across Nebraska or the surrounding region right now? For today, specifically, continue monitoring official National Weather Service outlooks and any warnings issued for your specific county, since isolated severe storms remain possible even as the more organized threat builds toward tomorrow. For tomorrow, Friday, treat the forecast seriously, given how explicitly meteorologists have flagged it as more favorable for organized, strong storms than what the state has already experienced. Have a way to receive warnings that does not depend solely on your phone. A no-way weather radio with battery backup is genuinely the most reliable option given how quickly cell networks and even sirens can fail during a major, severe weather outbreak. Know your household's severe weather safety plan, including where you would shelter if a tornado warning were issued for your specific location. If you live in an area that has already seen heavy rainfall this week, stay alert for flash flooding risk specifically, since already saturated ground means additional rainfall. From tomorrow's storms could run off far more quickly than it would under drier conditions. The honest, grounded summary is this. Nebraska has been under an active, multi-day severe weather pattern this week, including a confirmed tornado warning near Ord on Monday night, heavy rainfall exceeding 2 to 4 inches in parts of central Nebraska, and a level 2 out of 5 severe weather risk covering most of the state into Wednesday. Forecasters are now watching an even more dangerous setup build for Friday, one specifically described as more favorable for organized, strong storms capable of producing large to very large hail and widespread damaging winds, with the potential for that system to grow larger and more organized overnight into Saturday. The broader unsettled pattern behind all of this, driven by repeated cold fronts colliding with an unusually moist atmosphere and ground already saturated from one of Nebraska's wetter stretches in recent memory, is expected to continue through the rest of the week and into early next week, meaning this is very much an ongoing situation rather than a single day's threat. We are going to keep tracking this severe weather pattern the way we tracked it today, straight from the National Weather Service, the Storm Prediction Center, and local Nebraska meteorologists, not recycled headlines. Subscribe so you do not miss it as tomorrow's more dangerous setup actually plays out, because based on everything forecasters are saying, Friday is shaping up to be the more significant day of this entire stretch, and how it actually unfolds is still genuinely uncertain this far out. And leave that comment below. Tell me how your household prepares when a severe weather outlook like this one covers your area, because comparing notes on real preparedness is exactly the kind of thing that helps everyone watching this get through a week like this one a little more safely. Because behind every one of these outlook maps is a farmer in central Nebraska checking the hail forecast against fields already. Stressed by a genuinely unusual amount of rain this summer, a family in Lincoln keeping a weather radio charged after a week that has already tested the ground's ability to absorb any more water. A small-town emergency manager in central Nebraska making sure storm sirens are tested and ready before tomorrow's more dangerous setup even arrives. And a meteorologist in Hastings who has already issued one tornado warning this week and knows tomorrow's setup makes another one a real possibility. 5,000 likes on this one. Let us go. See you in the next one.